Okay, good evening. I guess we're ready to begin. Where do I start? Who's online for us tonight? I just know we had a meeting here. I have no idea where we're going. I suppose that somebody was going to, I know that we have to set up the committee as far as the president and vice president. What do I see here?
Roland, would you like me to run through everyone who's on the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So from the Budget Committee, we have yourself, Jim Long, Carl Mabzino, Bob Hanson, Ronnie McIntyre, Rich Clark, Mandy Sliver. We have Don Parkhurst, Bob Lambert, and then for the Select Board, we have Tyler Ward, Bill Taylor, Ed Youngs. And then for town staff, you have myself, Leo Smith, Danica Malone, Rodney Bartlett, Shannon Kelly, Allie Kreutz will be taking minutes for us, and Tim Brezovic is online to provide us with any technical support that we need from this side.
Okay, as I previously said, I think we need nominations for who's going to be chair and who's going to be vice chair, and then we go from there. And I'm going to need your assistance through the evening, Nicole, as usual. So I'm going to open the meeting to nominations for chair. So I give a nomination.
I nominate you, Roland, to be chair.
Do we have any other nominations? Do we have any other nominations?
Made by Hanson, thank you.
By who?
By Bob Hanson.
Bob Hanson, yes, I saw that. Any other nominations? Do we have a second?
I second.
It's too quick, these guys are all ready for me. Okay, I need a nomination for vice chair. Hear any? Help me, please.
I nominate Carl Mabzino.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
It's moved and seconded for me as the chair, and Bob, you as the vice chair. All in favor of the board, please signify by, how are we going to signify here?
And
Yeah, you'll have to announce, there's too many here, so
Okay.
I'll go down the list. Bob Hanson,
Yes.
Jim Long,
yes.
Roland Patton,
Yes.
Ronnie McIntyre,
Yes.
Carl Mabzino,
Yes.
Mandy Sliver, Don Parkhurst.
He's muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Don. I'm not sure which one is your,
Yes.
thank you. Rich Clark. Rich, you're muted.
Yes.
And Bob Lambert. Bob, I don't know if you have a,
He's probably having the same trouble that I had.
you may be, yeah,
Okay.
but you certainly have majority.
It sounds like we have a majority vote here, so I guess that's settled. Nicole, where do we start?
All right, actually, I am going to turn us over to Leo to start this.
Leo.
Yes. The first,
Leo, you're muted.
I can hear it, Leo, but you have to turn it
how's
up.
that?
That's
There
right.
you go.
Yeah, okay. Okay, the first thing what we're going to do in tonight's meeting is to look at the presentation of the FY22 proposed budget, which is one of the documents that you have in your book in the envelope section. It looked like this, and it had an impact and had a guide to the budget as well. What I'd like to do is first to talk about the highlights of the proposed budget.
Excuse me, let's let's make sure everybody's on, it's on tab 1, page 1.
Yeah. Looks like
It's actually the insert. So you have a little binder insert that was
Okay.
inside pocket of your binder. There you go. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Leo?
Okay. So this presentation is comparing the budget from last year to what we have as a proposed budget at this point in time. If we look at it on a line-by-line basis, we see the operating budget is up about $357,430, or 6.3%. The operating budget CIP is actually down 126,617, or almost 50%. And then we have the debt service is down by 117,705, or 13.6% decrease. So when we look at the subtotal of what the operating budget is, we're actually $113,108, or 1.7% over last year's budget. We add in the overlays and the credits; those are even compared to the previous year. And we look at the preliminary warrant articles that we have right now. We're actually a decrease of $280,000, or 33.2%. So when we look at the bottom line at this point in time, the amount to be raised through taxation is actually $166,892, or 2.1% less than last year's appropriation. That's kind of where we're at this point in time. Any questions?
Yes, Leo, could you just explain to us why the CIP budget is down almost 50%?
Well, we had quite a few, if you look in your book, if you look in your here, and you go to the section where there's tab 1. Tab 1 has the fiscal 2022 budget general fund. We're going to get into this schedule a little bit, but if you look at the next page, you can see the CIP items, you can see the special warrant articles for the FY 2021 budget, 22 budget, and then we also have capital improvement plan items compared to the previous year. So you can see that the net appropriation for 2000 FY22 is $563,100. The previous year was $843,100. So you can see the differences. One of the biggest differences is the Fly Pond Dam reconstruction.
That was zeroed out, as I recall reading. Is that correct?
That's what creates the $280,000 difference in the warrant articles.
Yep. That explains it.
Okay. So
Go ahead.
so that's kind of like the beginning of where we really wanted to get started. Want to start to get into some of the details. I want to kind of talk a little bit about the budget guide at the same time. If you turn back again to page tab 1, first schedule there has the town of Peterborough fiscal 2022 budget for the general fund. The first worksheet in there. Basically what this worksheet is doing is taking all the departments and putting them into various segments that there might be some commonality. I think in the past, when we looked at some of these various departments, it was usually just like one big spreadsheet, and there was no differentiation between what the particular department might have to do with the town. We have a number of departments that are part of general government, public safety, highways and streets, etc. So I thought it made sense to try to group those together so we could see what these segments really actually cost the town, as compared to looking at an individual budget basis. But I mean, we're still going to be able to do that. kind of as we go through the budgets. So taking that into consideration, that budget, that particular spreadsheet, I'd like to just kind of go through the budget guide that was provided. Maybe if you need a moment to get that. That was the write-up that was inside the book. I'll just kind of go through that. Hopefully everybody has that in front of them. Summary of the fiscal 22 budget, which is tab 1. Categorize departments into various light budget segments. Light budget segments are general government, there are 12 departments, public safety is 4, highway and streets is 2, sanitation is 2, welfare is 1, culture and recreation is 6, economic development 1 department, and debt service for the general fund. And again, this summary compares the proposed FY 2022 appropriations and revenues to the FY 2021 budget. This comparison shows department totals for individual department budgets as well as dollar and percent changes. As I mentioned, in the sleeve of the budget book, which we just started to review, you find a presentation folder covering the highlights of the proposed budget, budget-wide highlights and department-specific highlights. These department-specific highlights are grouped together within the light budget segment. So say, for example, if you're looking at public safety, which covers police, ambulance, fire, and emergency management, in the presentation folder, if you go to page 5, which again is this right here, the presentation here follows the segments that are on that sheet. And say, for example, this is just an example, we can see that the public safety proposed FY 22 expenditures increased from the FY 2021 budget by $241,000 or $241,356 or 9.8%. So then what I do is I go through and say, okay, where is it on the department level? We had an increase in police expenditures of $190,873. A lot of that was the increase in retirement due to the change in rates effective July 1st, 2021. The new rate is 33.88 compared to the present rate of 28.43, which is an increase of $120,611. We also had increase in salaries and related costs of $64,106, staff development costs of $100,000, training at $606,355, and miscellaneous expense savings of $15,161. So in light of that, so now you kind of get an overview. So then the next thing, if you wanted to get into the detail, you want to go to the police, budget tab itself for the department. So kind of going through that part, go through. So then to look at the budget line detail, you go to tab 10, which is just the police department specifically, and then you can see all the detail, all the expenses, the variances, notes, and that type of thing that would tie in with the overall expenses for the police department, along with the revenue estimates as well, which is the next page. So that's kind of the, trying to make it easy to kind of maneuver through all this information and put together this approach.
Any comments?
Just want to say for the public, anyone who's watching, if you're looking for these, all of these spreadsheets, everything that we have in these binders, and there's quite a lot of information there. It's all posted on our website, townofpeterborough.com, and then under boards and committees, click on the budget committee page, and that'll bring you right to a page as a whole list of Excel spreadsheets that you can download and look through yourself.
Very good, Leo.
Hopefully this helps. I know we went through this process last year, and there were some recommendations kind of based upon what was presented last year. We had our new general ledger system we were working with, trying to figure out what's the best way to present the information. I think last time we presented too much information, so we really tried to tighten that up a little bit, and have a little bit more variance analysis on the department levels between dollars and percentages, summarizing it up to the total, and kind of taking it from there.
I like the way it's presented, Leo, and I think it's a big improvement, to be honest with you. I was a little bit scared when you told me a lot of things have changed, but I think this
Because again, it was a team effort, working with the department heads and other operators, other staff, to be able to pull it together. But I thought it made a little more sense to where we were last year. Doesn't mean we can't continue to improve the budget process as we go forward.
Okay.
Okay, so the next piece I wanted to spend some time on was the next part of the presentation where it has the budget-wide highlights, which is basically page 2 in this folder here. Page 2. And Nicole has brought that up. So again, we tried to highlight what are some of the highlights that we've seen that are happening this year that have an impact on the budget. The salary line reflects increases for cost of living adjustment, which we call COLA, and merit. The combined average is about a 3.2% increase, with a financial impact of $109,536. Our health insurance premiums will increase at 2.7%. We estimate that the impact of that is about $24,300. The biggest impact that we're seeing on the expense side is the change to the New Hampshire retirement rates. As I previously mentioned, when we were looking at that example, police is at 33.8 from 28.43, plus 20%. The financial impact just in police is 120,611. The rest of the employee base is going up to 1406 from 11.17, which is a 26% increase. And the financial impact is $66,925. Total financial, then we have fire chief, and he's really the only one that has a financial impact on this. It's at $2,848. All of the other employees that work at the fire department are covered under the employee program. So that's kind of where we're looking at in terms of what are the key budget-wide highlights that we're going to, work our way through as we go through the budget. Questions?
Yeah, Leo, can you hear? This is Jim Long.
Yeah, Jim.
I'm just curious, what drives a 20% increase in the New Hampshire retirement rate?
That's the state legislature, I assume, right, Nicole?
It is, and they follow the guidance of their accountants and actuaries and all sorts of people that have input into that process.
So it's just some sort of formula that they come up with on what it's going to cost to pay out all these,
Yeah.
pensions. down there.
Exactly. So the money that the New Hampshire retirement system collects is invested. I suspect that they were looking at, what they were actually realizing and needed to make some tweaks. And that is done, through the New Hampshire legislature. The recommendations are made and then adopted.
Okay.
In other words, they mandated that the town pay more of the retirement than what they had been paying. Is that basically what we're getting?
That is correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or higher, I should say higher. Hey, Leo.
Okay. The next item would be, this is for Bob, and that's the overview of the capital improvement plan. Bob, you're muted. Yeah. Still muted.
Right.
There you go. Okay.
Hopefully Danica's got the slides.
I've got the presentation, I'm just setting it up right now.
Yeah.
Oops. Hold on. There you go, that should be working.
Yep, good. Well, first, welcome to the Budget Committee, right? Welcome to the CIP Committee's report to the Budget Committee. Before starting, I'd like to thank Danica Malone and Leo Smith for helping out on our deliberations and the preparation of this report. The CIP Committee has 7 members: Leanna McDonald, Valerie Jenkins, Ed Yingst, James Kelly, Carl Mebzeno, Alan Zeller, and me, Bob Hanson. I'm the chair of the committee. We met from September 30th to November 11th by Zoom, except for the very first meeting, which we had in the main auditorium upstairs in the town hall, which was kind of weird. We used the entire room for 7 of us. So, all the tables spread out, but it was interesting anyway. And I want to commend the department head. The presentations were really very professional this year compared, not that they were not last year, but they were much more professional this year than past. Okay, next slide. Our function really is to review the proposals from all department heads, expensive items, long life items, bonded debt, real property, expansion of utility systems, creation or expansion of a public building, et cetera, et cetera. We consider the optimal schedule and the financing for the town. Next. This is Fosh's department. First, he needs general funds for the computer. I was quite amazed. There's a long list of assets. He's in control of 186 between desktops, laptops, iPhones, iPads, network switches, and firewalls. So he's a busy guy. 186 different devices. The GIS reserve, which covers the area of flyover, which they do ortho land-based features, LiDAR and surface terrain every 5 to 7 years. The last flight was 2017. He's not sure when the next one's going to be, maybe, but it costs about $75,000, so they put away something every year to cover it. Next. This is Seth McLean's budget. The highlight here is the design and construction of the new DPW garage. God, we've been talking about that, it seems like for years, but apparently it's finally in. Although it was approved at last town meeting, but never got done. So hopefully it'll be done this year. And the stormwater, the roadway maintenance program, those are all pretty standard things. Roadway systems upgrade, that's one of my favorites because I think Seth came up with that maybe 3 years ago, and that's been, if you drive around town, that's been critical. The roads, some of these roads are really in horrendous shape, and now they're in pretty decent shape, so I'm impressed with that. The sidewalks, again, that's every year, $20,000, highway vehicle capital reserve, winter ops expendable trust, $5,000. It was more than that in the past, but I guess he's got quite a bit of money in there right now. And the DPW facility, which is $2.5 million, we'll see if that happens, but I think that's the plan. Okay. Rec department, Lisa Kozel-Betts took over, and they're getting one vehicle, a Econoline van, and a zero-turn mower. And the big thing on her budget is actually for next year, not 2022, but 2023, and that's architectural assessment of the community center.
That's for next year, you
We'll
see.
be on the next, okay. Okay, the police department, Scott Kennard is the chief. Fleet management, capital reserve, $18.1 thousand. And the cruiser purchase, $36,000. That's pretty standard. I think he's set back one of them. I don't have my notes right in front of me, but I think he's buying one less vehicle than he needed. We thought he was gonna, because one of them he's gonna keep using, so.
Well, it looks to me like he has an offset on one new vehicle of $5,000, which would be the sale of one of the regular ones that he has now.
Yes.
He's replacing that,
Right.
27, and the other one is that a past purchase that's still under fleet management, capital reserve, Nicole? Is that a leased vehicle?
I believe so, but I can't have too many things up right now, so I can look to double check.
That's okay.
But I can make a note of that and look into that for you all.
Yeah, it's what it looks like to me that it's possible.
Okay,
Wow.
next, fire department. Also, this is pretty standard this year. Apparatus and equipment fund, $40,000. AED replacement, $10,000. And that's only gonna be AEDs that are in critical positions or all in vehicles. Some of the ones in buildings are not gonna be replaced this year. And a portable radio purchase is $120,000. Been putting away $40,000 a year for 3 years, and this will be the last year. So they're gonna buy them this year, 28 radios and chargers. And this shows the CIP request and the debt service over time. From fiscal year 2021, which is the current year, to fiscal year 2027. You can see the big jumps in fiscal year 2022, which is predominantly the DPW garage. And 2023, it's the fire station. So there's two huge jumps for those two buildings. The CIP requests level off, as you can see, in 2023. And that's because most of the big projects in town will have been bonded and taken care of. So there's we don't anticipate any major expenses for major projects after that. The projected debt service, however, goes up from $595,000 this year to $1.6 million in fiscal year 2026. That's a big jump. Okay, this chart shows requests by department, and you can see the big jump for the DPW garage, the kind of a yellow, the soft yellow is DPW, and that's the DPW garage in fiscal year 2022. And you can see the fire station and transcript dam in 2023. That's the dark orange. And Rodney was thinking that the state would end up doing a lot of the dam repair, not dam repair, excuse me, the transcript dam repair, when they're doing the retaining wall. We have to see that, but he's hoping that will, so we'll actually spend less than originally scheduled. We'll see how that works out. Okay, fiscal year 2024 includes a north dam repair, which assuming it doesn't get voided by the state before then, it gets inspected periodically by the state, and if it gets failed, might have to do before then, but I think he's quite hopeful that it will wake up to that. And obviously, anything fiscal year 2024 at this point and beyond, that's subject to change, because a lot of things we don't know that could impact that. Okay, the largest facilities infrastructure project, which is the next slide, fire station, $8.5 million. that's a huge project. The DPW garage, $2.5 million, that's fiscal year 2022. The North Peterborough Dam, which is next to Wilder Rotary Park, that's about $1 million, that's gonna be fiscal year 2024. Transcript Dam, which is fiscal year 2023, $350,000, although Rodney, as I said, thinks we can get, our cost will be less than that. And the community center renovation, fiscal year 2023 is listed at $100,000. I can't believe it's gonna be done for that amount of money, when it's gonna cost $60,000 to figure out what's wrong with the building, but anyway, that's what's in the budget right now. I'd also, while I've got your attention, I'd like to, the CIP committee had some recommendations to the select board. One is to establish a reserve. I sent a memo around. Every 5 to 7 years, the rec department spends about $25,000 to resurface the tennis and basketball courts. We'd like to see a reserve sum put in with annual payments that could eliminate that large, large payment that happens every 5 to 7 years. We'll smooth the annual recreation budget. I think it makes sense.
That was a suggestion, but not proposed in this budget.
No, that's correct. And the other thing is, the next thing was to charge the Convale School District for the tennis court use. They use the course from 100 to 120 hours per year and pay nothing. And while they're using the 2 courts, no one else can use them.
We would have to look at that legally, because there was money received from the federal government to help build that. Therefore, that makes it a public entity. But I think they need to take into consideration the fact that it also needs repair, which that's open to collecting from the public. So I think that's something, Nicole, you may want to check into and make sure there's legal proceedings, start thinking about doing it. And secondly,
We can tell outdoor rentals, outdoor court rentals are now in the neighborhood of $22 to $45 an hour. If they paid $10 an hour, that would amount to over $2,000 a year that would really help the rec department budget, so we're recommending that. The next thing was the community center. It became obvious as we were going through the process that the rec department really has no experts in building construction, and that's a huge building. It needs a lot of work, and poor Lisa is way overhead. It ends up being the DPW who's handling most of this. We think it should be taken out of the rec department and put somewhere else, like DPW, or who owns the town hall? I assume that, I'm not sure who does that, but it probably should be in the same category as the town hall, because it's a major building, huge building for the rec department to handle, and it's gonna go through extensive repairs in the next 2 or 3 years. And after that, it's still a big building with all the systems in a big building, and they really don't have any expertise to handle that. So we think it should be under the control of DPW, or just like the same as the town hall. So I guess that was the letter we sent, and you should have received that, or you should receive it shortly. We sent it a couple weeks ago, so I'm hoping you got it by now.
okay.
So I guess that's kind of our report. I don't know if there's any questions, comments, or...
Do I hear any?
Was that letter sent by email a couple weeks ago? I didn't see it.
I don't know, I sent it, Danica.
I did forward it via email to Nicole.
Okay.
But I think it might not just have made it onto the agenda.
It didn't make it onto the agenda in time, so. We'll make sure that it gets sent out to you, and it'll be included in the following packet, just to complete the loop.
I've got a question.
Sure.
On the rec department building, I thought that was supposed to be, the rec department was supposed to take care of it. It wasn't supposed to cost the town anything when they took that over. and now you're suggesting it be taken back by the town to the maintenance and take over. I thought all funds from that were supposed to be self-sufficient. That's just my understanding.
Yeah.
We could talk to Lisa when we interview, I think, Nicole, with that.
That is accurate, though. In 2008, when the town took over the building, the select board required that the building be self-sufficient and not require additional general fund dollars to maintain. Some general fund dollars do go towards supporting the food pantry's activities there, but that is the limit of the general fund dollars that are used on that building.
There's all kinds of issues with the building right now that need to be fixed.
I understand that.
It's asbestos, there's several issues, I don't have a list in front of me, but there's probably 5 major things that need to be fixed too. I don't think it's gonna be cheap to do that.
No.
No. Okay,
Yeah, you probably got an idea, you're in that business, not in a big business like that, but you got an idea what it's gonna cost, it's gonna cost a lot, I think.
Yeah, but that was the whole point. It was not supposed to cost the town anything. And now if we take it back from them and start putting taxpayers, we're responsible. That was supposed to be self-sufficient. It wasn't supposed to impact the taxpayers. What you're saying is to let the DPW and us as taxpayers take it back over. And I'm not sure if that was the spirit of what we committed to back then. That's all. I understand it needs a lot of work, and the DPW would be a better, or whoever's taking care of the town halls, take care of it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's what we agreed to way back then, and I don't know if we want to change that agreement, and if we can, because I don't know.
Rich, I think there are 2 issues here. One is the management, and the other is the financing. I think the recommendation going to the select board from the CIP was to have the management of the building be shifted over to an entity that's more accustomed to those kinds of issues. The financing, and we did discuss the same issue of how much the town is even allowed to spend, but that's a separate question.
So they pay us for us management.
If I can interrupt, Mr. Chair, we've got a lot to get through tonight, and I think this is a
Sure.
great conversation to have with the rec, during the discussion of the rec department's budget.
I agree with you.
That activity for the community center is in the recreation revolving fund.
Yeah.
Bob, are you done with your CIP presentation?
Yes.
I guess it's back to you.
Back to me.
Nicole, are you on?
Well, part of the review for tonight was to go through some individual department budgets. And I have 6 budgets that we're going to take a look at tonight. And I'll give you the tab numbers that you can look at for the budget. The first one, I'll give you a couple minutes to get there. The first one is executive administration. Hopefully everybody has that.
That's tab 1.
There's the screen, this came up. We can see as we go through all the different line items, we can see in total that the budget for that department is actually $10,401 less than last year's budget, which is about a 4.1% increase. There was some money that was encumbered at the end of FY21 for website design for $6,870, and that resides in the services account that has a amended budget of $31,870. But as we kind of go through this is where a majority of management salaries, taxes, retirement are. Basically, mostly management allocations. We do have a new position, a community economic development coordinator, plus an administrative assistant. But we're still able to come up with a budget without that line item that's less than last year's. You can see as you go through all the different line items from payroll to retirement to supplies. The other item in there is on the services line. You see a number in there for $50,000. That's estimated consulting services for Rodney Hart. Recently, it was determined that Rodney is continuing work for the town will become an employee. So that will change from consulting services to basically salaries. When you look at the budget for last year, we actually had $25,000 in there, but it was increased because of the encumbrance of $6,870 to cover Rodney's consulting during the period of, mid-January through the end of the fiscal year. None of the other line items are significantly different. We've been able to really take a look at, we've been able to do a lot of trend analysis this year because of our new general ledger system. We're able to, you'll see as you go through some of the various budgets, and we'll have 3-year trends, 2-year trends, whatever it looked like it made sense in terms of what we wanted to spend in a particular department. So this budget is actually on the expense side is coming in below last year's budget. Any questions?
You're not.
Okay. The other part of it is the revenues, and revenues are basically flat than last year. The biggest, the largest revenue we have there is flood control reimbursement grant from the Department of Revenue Administration. So there's really nothing exciting happening there on the revenue side.
Leo, I do have a question, an observation, and I hope everyone will bear with me. It has to do with how we're going to interpret all of the numbers for all of the departments, so bear with me. I'm going to play lawyer and ask a question that I think I already know the answer to. And the question is, in looking at these numbers, how do we tell what the tax impact of the administration, executive administration is this year compared to the tax impact last year? And I think there's an additional calculation that we need to do to come up with that figure. But to further try to get across why I think this is important, I would ask people to look in the big book on page 1, the Budget General Fund Overview. Look at the line General Government Subtotal. If we look at that, the expenditures are down 8.3%.
Correct.
And if we look at the revenue line, the revenues are down 12.8%.
Correct.
How do those jive together? What is the end result of those two forces?
Okay, I'll try to answer that as specifically as I can. A lot of the expenses that are built, we have built into the going on with the budget, there are other revenue issues that came up to play that created a big part of that variance. It's really two things. If you look in, we've had two transactions. One is in finance. We have a investment account, and last year in interest income, I think we made over $110,000, and we're estimating, because interest rates are so low, that it's going to be somewhere around the $12,000 range. The other item that's in general government is that for 2 years, we received unanticipated revenue from the state of New Hampshire, $89,383, and those funds were only for 2 years. So they're not part of the 2022 budget. So those two items right there create one of the,
Right, but maybe I'm not making myself clear. It seems to me that you're answering a question I didn't ask. And going back to the negative 8.3% expenditures and the negative 12.8% revenues, if we combine those together, what's the overall effect? What's the overall impact? I did a calculation, and I came up with that the net impact on taxation is an increase of 1.53% over the previous year. So my point is that when we look at these numbers, I see 8% down and 12.8% down in revenues. It doesn't inform me about what the actual tax impact is going to be
Okay. If you-
compared to last year.
In that same schedule, there's right below where it has the totals that you were just quoting. It shows a net increase of 7,162.
17,162, and that's, those are the cells that I've just highlighted in yellow. So if you look to the screen, you can see that right underneath the general government subtotal, Leo's included a net number. So general government, all those departments included in general government have, after their appropriations and revenues, will have a net additional taxation requirement of $17,162.
Got it.
Yep, and so you see that subtotal, that net is underneath each of the subtotals. So you have a public safety subtotal, and then underneath there, you'll see, underneath the revenue side, you'll see the net impact, which is an increase of $239,231.
All right.
And as Leo was alluding to, it's for different reasons across the budget. Many of them are revenue-oriented reasons, and we'll get into each of those individually. And then some of them are expense-oriented reasons, such as the pensions that Leo already talked about and the increased cost there. So it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that as we go through all of them.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question, Ron?
It answers my question. Had I been able to, if I knew what that was representing and had a percentage calculation, that would have solved the problem for me very quickly.
No.
But is that a valid question to ask? I think it is. What's the tax impact in the upcoming budget compared to the tax impact last year?
Absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely right. It's an important question to be able to ask and to keep in mind. Also,
Okay.
keep in mind that as we go through the budgets, Leo's already highlighted a couple of things that have changed since your spreadsheets were sent out or printed. And there's going to be more changes, so we're going to be continuously updating you throughout this process with new spreadsheets to replace what you currently have.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Mandy. Before we move away from the executive administration budget, I was just curious what the reasoning was for the new position of economic development coordinator being in this budget versus the community development budget.
Honestly, it was just it was a decision that we made based on the kind of work that the economic development coordinator is doing, economic community development coordinator. It's more than just what has been traditionally planning and zoning oriented work. The work that Karen's been doing, I think as people have seen over the last year, has been very broad and has really touched a lot of different traditional departments, a lot of administration work, a lot of, obviously the economic development, the EDA's work. She's picked up a lot of that. So and also some work, continues to do some work with planning, and I'm going to let Karen kind of talk a little bit more about that later. She is on with us tonight. But that's why we've decided to separate it out and include it in administration for now. And it may not stay there forever. It may move back, in the future, back to Office of Community Development or Planning and Community Development. It's really based on the needs of the community at the time. Yep. All right.
Leo?
Any other questions or people? Yeah, next department that we're going to discuss this evening will be finance, and that is tab number 4.
Did we want to do other general government first, or?
I was kind of going in tab sequence so that people wouldn't, have to flip around a lot. We can do the different one.
No. I just need to know which one I'm opening next.
Yeah, okay. This needs to be the finance report.
Yeah.
Everybody got it?
Yep. Let's take a look at what's going on in finance. Again, we've broken up into some different departments. We have finance operations, and we have $6,145 increase over last year's budget of 2.3%. As you kind of go through the budget, you can see there is an increase in payroll of a little over 10,000. Part of that is related to increases. The other part is that because of some of the allocations that we were looking at, we can get an offset in the department budget and tax collection. So if you scroll down that page and you get to salaries on tax collection, you can see that's based on a FY22 budget of 44,853 compared to the 53,446. So it's just a little bit of a shifting in terms of how we were allocating finance department personnel. That kind of covers that piece a little bit. So then we take a look at tax collection, which is the other budget. That's actually coming in below the FY21 budget, 664,487 compared to 75,976, which is down 15.1%. And when we look at the total appropriations on finance, they're actually coming in at 5,344, less than last year, or minus one, down 1.5%. Again, pretty straightforward. In terms of the expenses, nothing new or exciting happening there. It's pretty much consistent. We did, we also were going to have in operations and computer services, we're going to have annual maintenance fees for the ESNA software. It's less than what was in last year's budget. I think part of that too is when the budget was created, really not knowing exactly what that maintenance fee was going to look like. That's why it was probably budgeted at $15,000.
While we're speaking about tax collection, would this be a good time to remind everybody that property tax bills are due today? In case you forgot or don't have it coming out of your mortgage?
Good idea.
Well, to be honest with you, we have good statistics as it relates to that. As of today, our fall warrant was 11.9 million. And, you know, we have, let's see, it's 11.9. We have 1.5 that's still outstanding. We've collected 10.4 million out of the 11.5. That's where we are on taxes. So far, that concerns that we had about what was going on in the economy, people's employment, their revenue resources, and that kind of stuff. The trend is very similar to what has been in situations that hasn't had as much concern about COVID. So we take a look at revenues. Now this is where we follow up a little bit on that whole discussion about interest and dividends. As you can see, because of the low interest rates, we're only budgeting $12,000 this year. That's a $103,000 drop in last year's budget, or 89.6%. I have no idea when and if that's going to change. And the rest of the revenues are pretty straightforward. In terms of meals and room taxes, payment lieu of taxes, timber yield, land use change, interest and penalties on property taxes. Those are interest and penalties on outstanding bills. And we came down a little bit. We had budgeted 120 last year. We budgeted 95 for FY22, which is about where it was for FY20. So you can see where we lost 120,952 in revenues. And that's, again, in the finance department. Let me see that again. That would be on that summary sheet. Any questions? Okay. Let's move on to assessing, which would be tab 5 in your book. Okay, assessing is pretty straightforward. We do have an allocation of payroll. That's primarily for Ally. She works part-time doing assessing work, trying to take care of all the assessing clerk stuff. But we'll most likely we'll be looking at a statistical update that will start in FY21 and carry over into FY22. As you can see, we have the cost built in on both sides of the budget. This year's budget is 96.5, next year's is 85,000. We have our assessing software annual maintenance, so it's pretty straightforward. And you know, we'll have to see how the whole statistical update works out, but we know that our equalization ratio is getting very low. So we want to make sure that we don't get into a situation where the number becomes too low. We talked about doing it last year, but the sample of homes that we have is kind of small in terms of what kinds of increases they would have projected for increased assessment. So we passed on it, but we're going to do it starting in this fiscal year. In 21, the results won't be known until FY22. Any questions there? Okay, we have human resources coming up. That's tab 8. Nicole, you want to handle that?
Yep.
Okay.
Waiting for it to load. So human resources, pretty straightforward. Again, you'll see that salaries are up a smidge. That's due to allocation primarily of my salary. And in line with that is payroll taxes, retirement, workers' compensation, all those accordingly. Human resources operations, this is mostly supplies, ads. It's really just the types of things that you would expect to see when you're bringing on new employees. Almost all of this is related to new employee-related costs. We have found, since this is a relatively new budget, we've only had it for a few years, we started making some adjustments this year thanks to Leo's review of the last 3 years of actual expenditures. And so we were able to change a few things, such as the services line and the medical services line both went down to reflect actual expenditures out of these. Whereas advertising has gone up a bit because, unfortunately, the cost of running ads is incredibly expensive. It's gone up more and more every year. And a few other costs, we had some money budgeted for staff development to do some trainings and seminars, but of course, COVID-19 happened. Those were canceled, and so we don't expect to see those again this year, or if we do, they're probably going to be virtual conferences, which are typically much less expensive. And so we've adjusted the budget accordingly. That's pretty much it. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on this one.
I just had a quick question on the salaries. I mean, my understanding, I could be wrong on this, is Nicole, you do primarily most of the human resources work, and and just wondering with your new job title, is that going to carry over to you, and you will continue to do that, or is there talk of potentially bringing someone else to take those responsibilities where you have so many new responsibilities?
That's a great question, Mandy. Jen Hall has been my assistant HR director for quite a while now. Most of her salary is in the finance department, and she and I really split it. So as far as most of the actual work, onboarding employees, doing the benefit management, that sort of thing, that's Jen's work. My work has been the more special projects side of HR. So going out, doing the job search, the seeking of new department directors, for instance, any kind of discipline issues that we might have, some of the more complicated health-related issues, medical issues that employees might come up with, I'll typically get involved in those things. And some of the contracted work that we do. So we have Express Med, Bedford Occupational Health. They go by a long, complicated name. I think there were 2 companies that merged together. I work with them, for instance, to make sure that we have all of our drug and alcohol testing for our CDL drivers is done on site, that they come in, they do that. They also, do fit for duty evaluations, that sort of thing for us. So that's the kind of work that I'm doing now. So we do have a nice division of labor. Jen does an incredibly good job. I'm really pleased with, with how she's just picked up and run with some things, and really smoothed out some of the processes that we had. It's working, it's functioning much better than it was. So I feel pretty confident that we have a good division of labor now between the two of us.
That's still a lot on your plate though, so.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? Leo, what's the next one?
Tab 9, other general government.
Okay.
All set for that?
Yep.
Just a few items I think we need to talk about here. One is the first line, cafeteria wages. I'm sure people are probably saying, what the heck is that? What kind of charge is that? Well, basically, the town has a policy in place that with approval of senior management, people sell their vacation time. So say, for example, if I had 5 weeks, wanted to get cash in 2 weeks, I could go to senior management and see if I could get it approved. The interesting thing is what we're seeing is that because of COVID, people are selling more and more of their vacation. You can see that even year-to-date through 12/16, we had already exceeded last year when it was about 76% done versus the fiscal 21 budget. So kind of based upon the FY 21 actuals, we came up with a budget of $62,663 for those cafeteria wages. Obviously, we had to. Nicole, you can jump in on that too.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that because this is a kind of a special circumstance jump to this budget. Typically, we don't have people selling this much vacation. They're usually taking it or even buying additional vacation. What our cafeteria program allows people to do is to take advantage of a flexible benefits program that we have and we've had for a number of years. Ken Brenner set this up. It gives employees the opportunity if they can, one of the great benefits to the taxpayers of this program is that if employees have the opportunity to buy their health insurance, dental insurance or whatever from a spouse's program or from another plan that they have available to them, they can do that and receive a small cash payout from the town for not taking those benefits that they would otherwise be able to take, but then the town saves the bulk of the cost. So this, over the years, has been incredibly beneficial to the town, saved us an awful lot of money. It has been replicated in many other municipalities and private organizations. It works incredibly well. But this year, yes, it's a big jump. It's a big jump because of COVID-19. It's directly related to that. So people are carrying over vacation where they can. Other folks just know that they're not going to be able to take the trips that they had planned to, and so they're going to be selling them off. And our expectation is that will continue next year.
Okay. The next big line item obviously would be various insurances. In terms of health insurance, we're budgeting $930,020, which is a 2% increase over what we think our estimated FY21 is. And that compares to last year's budget of $962. One of the interesting things is you can take a look at FY20 and you can see the expense of $806,373. We were fortunate in that fiscal year to get what our health insurance company calls a premium holiday, which is basically they gave us a credit. So that was a big help. We didn't get one for FY21 for this budget, but we track this very closely and feel comfortable that the estimate of $930,000 is good. We might be able to, before the budget's over, take another look at it and see whether or not there might be more opportunities. Considering the fact too that what Nicole's just saying is that people might be reducing their benefit levels too and getting a little stipend there, but that would also help us on the health insurance cost. And that's pretty consistent between the health and dental. Vision's not much. Life insurance and disability insurance are estimated at 2% increase over estimated FY21 numbers. So when we look at this particular aspect of general government, we're down about 133,726, or 10.9%. One of the other things I wanted to address though too, where we get a little benefit back up on the, where it has employee merit and direct COLA. Last year's budget had that number, that 88,112, but in actuality, that number, that increase was allocated out to all the town budgets, and that's what's in the notes. It was budgeted really at the department level when it got itself rolled out. Kind of same thing down in the next section of general government operations, the same thing with the retirement. It was actually, when the budget rolled itself out, it was actually at the department level. In the property insurance, estimating a 2% increase over estimated FY21. Legal fees staying pretty much the same, $75,000 a year, same as the FY21 budget. Tax overlay and veterans tax credits, again, those are consistent with what they've been last year's budget. Those numbers should be okay. And then when we kind of work our way down, we also have another budget in there called periodic services. We budgeted that pretty much at the same as last year. So when we get down to the net number, we're looking at basically $1,359,553, which is $158,445 less than last year, or 10.4%. 10 decrease.
Decrease, yeah.
Yeah, decrease, yeah, sorry.
Very good questions. Guess we can carry on.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Yep.
when you talk about that decrease, part of that is due to moving a part of the budget to other departments, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely, but I think there's a, kind of a good story we can talk about towards the end in terms of some of the reductions that we've seen in staffing overhead and the cost compared to last year's budget. We can do that more towards the end. Okay, so let's see, Nicole is next at Human Services, which is tab 2020.
Did you want to talk about revenues? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
By the general government.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest decreases, as you can see, the unanticipated revenue of 89,353. They basically had that for 2 years, and that's gone. Taking a look at some of the other transfers that come in from the other funds, the only one that was a little shy was the sewer fund. I think we might have estimated more health insurance costs that should have been allocated in the budget. It's more related to 47,560 and more closer to the allocation for last year's budget, 46,312. The other numbers are pretty consistent with the budget of last year's amounts. But overall, it created a 150,362 variance. Next budget is in tab 25, which is Human Services. I'll let Nicole. Pretty straightforward.
It is pretty straightforward. Really not a whole lot of change from prior years. You'll see that the I'm trouble getting this sheet adjusted. You'll see that again, the salaries are up a bit. That's because it's mostly my salary that's being allocated to this, a little bit of Ally's salary as well. And in the future, that will probably shift again as I move away from taking an active day-to-day role in the human services portion of what we do here. And again, the other allocations all reflect that same increase. Other than that, it's really very straightforward. We've reduced some of the costs. We're leaving a certain number of things in there, including mileage. it's in there at a lower amount. There is one seminar that's given every year by the Welfare Administrators Association in New Hampshire, that if they do hold it in person this year, I'd very much like Ally to go to it, but it may be virtual or they may not hold it at all, I'm not sure. Other than that, we're keeping everything pretty stable. The direct relief budget is flat at $80,000. Public assistance, this is what goes to other agencies besides the town of Peterborough that provide human service needs that would otherwise have to be met by the town. So for instance, Manac Family Services has an allocation that they bill the town each year that we pay out of this line. And then there's a few others. Home health care and community hospice, Meals on Wheels, that sort of thing. Those find their way into this budget. I don't know if there's any questions on.
Just a quick question on the public assistance, that line you were just mentioning. If we, it looks like we had $20,000 budgeted for it, and it's 30 in previous years. And I remember having this conversation last year that you got more applications than you had in previous years, but we're keeping that line flat. Do you anticipate less organizations asking for money? Because I'm figuring in the middle of COVID that might actually increase or stay the same as in 20.
Yep. So what we've done last year and in previous years is as you can see from the direct relief line, we don't always use all of the $80,000. We have a core number of organizations that the town will always contribute to, Nana Family Services being one of them. For instance, they play such a vital role in providing services to our residents. And so there's a certain number that we always will budget for, make sure that we have some money for. Then there are some others that we would like to contribute to if we have money. When I have leftover direct relief money at the end of the year, and I'll wait until June, I'll fund those other agencies out of that money. So the money those agencies do get supported, they're just kind of on a second tier. I know, it's.
I just feel like, I mean, in the event of being kind of transparent, it seems like it would be a cleaner budgeting practice to actually put it in the line item where you think it might best be spent, which sounds like would be to decrease the direct relief budget line and increase. And I mean, I can understand not wanting to have to do that, but if that's not where the money's being spent, it feels like it's not being as transparent as we'd like it to be. That's just a thought and an observation.
I understand that, and I certainly understand that philosophy. But my take on it is more that the human services budget is first and foremost meant to support direct relief, to meet people's basic needs when they need it. If we, in years that we're fortunate that we don't need to use the whole budget, which we didn't last year, it's great to be able to support some of the other service organizations or community service agencies that are doing such good work to make sure that those people don't need to come to our doorstep. So that's why I've done that. But there are going to be years, 2021, maybe one of them, depending on how continued CARES Act COVID-related relief goes, where we may end up having to use most, if not all, of that $80,000, and in fact could find ourselves using more than that. So that's really where I look at that. So it's good to have that important, to have those contributions to that top tier of agencies that are providing such necessary support to the community, but to be able to spend additional money to keep other agencies working, providing assistance to the residents as well.
Absolutely, and I'm not exactly sure where the agencies would fall in with the second tier, but one might argue, especially going into, the times that we're going into, that all the agencies are just as important, because if they went away, then that would definitely impact the community, so.
Any other questions on this one? I'm going to open up EDA.
Yep. At tab 28.
And Karen, I believe you're with us if you want to jump in and take us through your budget.
Sure. I am
I'm with you. Here, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, all right. Okay, all right, so I have, so as background, let's start there. So EDA budget has been operating over the last several years out of a warrant article that granted the EDA $70,000 for marketing. And this is the last year, by June of 2021, those dollars need to be spent as per the warrant article. So, and the EDA has done a very good job managing those funds. I think the work that they have funded has been effective. So some of that work we would like to continue in the following year. And we all recognize that it probably is not the time, given all of what we're living in, to go back to the community to ask for another warrant article. So the group is not interested to do that, but rather will channel some of the duties and some of the work of marketing the town to my office and what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis versus outsourcing that. So as a result, what we have are two parts of a budget here. With the EDA budget moving from its standard $5,000, which is what it had as operating, if you will, in addition to the money it had in the warrant article each year. So instead of the 5, the EDA is asking for 10, which would allow it to continue to contract with Drum Productions to do the social media posting, though on a smaller, on a less frequent basis, and to continue to do advertising in social media online, to host the website, the Peterborough Works website, and make sure that is updated and maintained, fund the welcome team, which is very hopeful that at some point in the next fiscal year, we will actually again begin to have those meet and greets again and do the visits again and need the funding. So that'll all be part of that 10,000. Also to say that with the reduction in Drum, we did that and felt confident that that was a good move to make because the Promoting the Region initiative that is a broader marketing effort for the Monadnock region is getting some funding and driving its efforts forward. Got some CARES Act money and is doing a really nice job of promoting the broader region, including Peterborough. So if we felt comfortable that we could reduce some of what we were doing that was very Peterborough specific and gain the advantage of being part of these broader efforts. So that's the 10,000 for EPA. And then the second part of this is now community and economic development, which is my area. And what I've looked at in terms of funding needed is this $14,000 number, which has mostly to do with events in town, which we expect will be important to do, both to celebrate the bridge reopening when that happens, perhaps to do some other, be part of some other community events that build a sense of community during these, hopefully when we're coming out of COVID, and to have some funds to do some work around that, to also fund the work of community engagement when the Housing Task Force reconvenes, which we do expect will happen. So we want to have some funding for that. It's a pretty modest request. We're hoping to be able to do a lot with it. And we will utilize the funds the town has to leverage other funds in the community through partnerships with service organizations and grants and other things that we can access. So that's what's in this budget request. And I'll happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I just want to say that a couple of these things, such as the Chamber of Commerce dues, some of the printing and whatnot, was carried in the administration budget in the past, and it's been moved, separated out and moved over into this budget.
Have any other questions?
Well, that was easy. All right.
And with that, we've come to the end.
Oh,
Sounds good.
Good. Battery's almost dead.
and the rest of us are just out of gas.
So I guess we need to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn? Or do we just shut our machines off?
I heard a motion to adjourn from Mandy Sliver,
Seconded.
All in favor? Shut
second
down.
by Ron McIntyre.
Yeah?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Well, I'll set that.
Manifestly in favor.
Yay! Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.